Welcome to Epics and Earrings, a place where we celebrate beautiful books, great stories, and character-inspired style statements. We read, we exchange ideas, and we extract wisdom to live epic lives, all while looking fabulous. I'm your host, Jess. Now, I'm still figuring out the best place to film these episodes and the best way. I prefer things to be more casual and comfortable, and I was going to try that for this, but I am now doing it at my desk. So go figure. Maybe eventually I will be in my bed, just hanging out there, which is where I like to read a lot of my books anyway. Today's earrings are inspired by the Georgian and Regency eras in England, the backdrop for Jane Austen's life and writings. Jewelry during this time would have been made by skilled artisans and might feature large gemstones like diamonds and bow or teardrop motifs. Now, sadly, these are not the ones that I planned to wear, and they probably are reflecting the whole entire world back to you. They are teardrops. I had another pair of beautiful gem teardrops that I really liked, but I tried one on last night before I went to a banquet for my kiddos, and I don't know where, I decided not to wear them, but now I don't know where that one is. So I'm wearing these. No, these are great. I really love them. They're very bold, aren't they? I got them at Kohl's on clearance recently, and they're super heavy. So I don't know how long I'm going to be able to wear them before my ears droop too far, but I do really love them. They're very strong. They're a very strong style statement. I doubt very much that these existed in this way back then, but they were my only real teardrop type earrings that I had. So they're not really indicative of the style, but we'll talk a little bit more about the style so that you can understand what the style was. So it would have been gemstones, diamonds, bows, teardrops. There was also this thing called repoussé jewelry. It was another trend at the time. The word comes from the French word repousser, which means pushed back, and it refers to a metalworking technique that creates a raised design on the surface of precious metal. Now, I hope to find some examples of that for you, since I don't have anything that represents that in my jewelry collection that I could find. Clearly not from that time period, but also nothing modern that would even be reminiscent. And I really haven't seen much of that type of jewelry in American antique shops, which would make sense because America is a younger country. Maybe our styles around the Revolution, even among the more well-off, may have been different for many reasons. We had a lot going on here during that time, but that begs a lot of additional questions in my mind for another time, perhaps. I did recently see a great video of some museum pieces at Mount Vernon, George Washington's home, that were pieces Martha Washington would have owned and worn. They were more in line with the beautiful gemstones of the time, and even though we were not replicating the monarchy in America, Martha was our first lady, and so the idea that she would wear beautiful gemstones that happen to be garnets in settings like the ones represented by aristocracy in England speaks to that same sense of grandeur as a queen. And this tells us what we already know, that style in any form is important to recalling our feelings and ideas about people in status and position. And so that is very interesting to me. We may need to dive deeper into that at another time, but I am going to include a link to that museum video in the show notes so that you can get a sense of what I'm talking about. They're absolutely stunning, beautiful, and much more representative of the period than these bad boys. Now, for women of the Georgian period, they generally aren't walking around wearing their best jewels day to day. So I think those would have been reserved for events, balls, debutantes, debuts, so to speak. So that's very interesting. What I've loved to learn in my research was that the Regency era would be the era that jewelry would become more available to everyone, not just the socially and economically elite. And I love that because, of course, I think everyone should be able to look and feel fabulous.
So let's talk a little bit about the Georgian period. We know it lasted from 1714 to 1830 or 1837, depending on whether you include William, Duke of Clarence, or William IV, who isn't a George. So the Georgian period itself was named after the Hanoverian kings, George the First, Second, Third, and Fourth, who reigned during this time. And then William would have been another one they smushed in there. Anyway, there were a lot of Georges. That's what you need to know. Makes George Foreman a little less crazy for naming all of his children George, although he's still a little crazy for doing that. No offense, George Foreman. You're very cool. But King George III was the reigning monarch during Jane's lifetime. He ruled from 1760 to 1820, a time which included the American and French revolutions. His son, George, surprise, Prince of Wales, acted as regent during a time his father was ill and unable to fulfill his duties as king. This period would last from 1811 to 1820 until his father's death, when he would ascend to the throne as King George IV. The time in which he acted as regent on behalf of his father would be known as the Regency era, which happens within the Georgian period, so that's not confusing at all. If you are familiar with the Netflix series Queen Charlotte, A Bridgerton Story, she is the wife of King George III. So yes, that series and Bridgerton is a Georgian Regency era drama. Although none of us should depend on Bridgerton to be absolutely historically accurate or realistic, it is a lot of fun though. Now, technically, Northanger was written in the late 1790s by 20-something Jane Austen. So while within the Georgian period, it predates the years considered to be the Regency era.
Now, I'm being a bit lazy in introducing you to Jane. She really needs no introduction because she's one of the most famous writers of all time. So here is what Britannica Online says about her. Jane, born December 16th, 1775, was an English writer who first gave the novel its distinctly modern character through her treatment of ordinary people in everyday life. She published 4 novels during her lifetime: Sense and Sensibility in 1811, Pride and Prejudice in 1813, Mansfield Park in 1814, and Emma in 1815. And these, and in Persuasion and Northanger Abbey, which were published together posthumously, in 1817, she vividly depicted English middle-class life during the early 19th century. Her novels defined the era's novel of manners, but they also became timeless classics that remained critical and popular successes for over 2 centuries after her death. These works reflect her enduring legacy. And that's the end of my quote from Britannica Online. What's interesting is the themes of Northanger Abbey are fortuitously in sync with some of the themes of this channel. For example, the importance of reading and the power of stories to shape our ideas and thoughts about life and love. As with all of Jane's other works, the role of status, class, and money in relationships is also woven into Northanger as well. At the time of Jane's life, so many women's lives and livelihoods relied on a desirable dowry that could attract promising suitors. From what I could find in my research, women could inherit land, but the primogeniture system favored male heirs. The marriage law also favored men, very much so, and would essentially put her possessions in his name once they were joined in marriage. So that is the simplest way I can explain a very complicated thing for the purposes of reading her books. And it's why there is so much talk about who makes what in Jane Austen's stories, because given the way I was personally raised, you do not go around discussing how much everyone makes for a living. It is incredibly rude.
So why do we love Jane Austen so much? Now, not everybody agrees with her, with the idea of loving her. But to me, Jane is the Shakespeare of her time. And the reason I say this is Jane's works are full of wit and wisdom. They are entertaining, they are classical, but they are also incredibly timeless. They bring characters that you experience so much through dialogue, which is what probably makes them so easy to adapt to stage and screen. And they say something about the period in which they were written, while they also say so much about the unchanging qualities of humanity. And while they aren't dark and brooding and tragic like Shakespeare can be, they rely on elements of human relationships that cause conflict, such as casting judgment, misunderstanding signals, secret longing, and being confined with society and culture allow.
Now, when next we meet, we will be starting with Volume 1, Chapter 1 of Northanger Abbey, and meeting our not-so-heroic, almost pretty heroine, Catherine Morland. Now, I would love to hear any thoughts or comments you have, so please tell me what you think in the comment section below. And help me reach my first little goal of 250 subscribers, which is actually not that small right now for me. But do it by liking, sharing, and subscribing and following. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, and of course, I'm on YouTube. I cannot wait to hang out with you in the next chapter because this is going to be epic. Bye for now.